We are good to go. So Mike, I think you were chair.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I see the recording has started. Again, apologies for not being there in person, but we're here for the MOA GBOS quarterly meeting, July the 28th, 2025. I'm just going to read the boilerplate. Girdwood Board of Supervisors, committees and subcommittees are subject to the Alaska Open Meetings Act as found in Alaska Statute 44.62.310 and Anchorage Municipal Code 1.25, public meetings. Girdwood Board of Supervisors operates under the Girdwood Public Meeting Standards of Conduct. Call this meeting to order at 4:03 p.m. Brian, since you're there, would you like to read the land acknowledgement?
I'd be glad to.
Thank you.
The Girdwood Board of Supervisors acknowledges the indigenous peoples of Alaska, whose land we reside on. The community of Girdwood, situated between the areas known to be the Naida and the Aluptic homeland, respects the people who were stewards of this land for generations. We commit to the continued stewardship of this land and are grateful to be part of a wider community that seeks to maintain the sustainable use of Girdwood Valley for present and future peoples.
Thank you very much. Kyle, could you do the roll call for GBOS and then let staff introduce themselves as well? Thank you.
Can you take care of that?
Sure. Mike Edgington.
Yes.
Thank you. Brianna Sullivan.
Present.
Thank you. Brian Burnett.
Present.
Thank you. Do we have Connect? Haven't seen her. She may arrive. And Jennifer Wingard.
She said Norway.
Oh.
Just got off an airplane.
Oh, very good. All right. Well,
Visiting her daughter, her ski jumping daughter.
nice. Okay.
Yeah, I think Jennifer is excused.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. If anyone sees Kelly arrive, can you let me know? And obviously, if I see her, I'll make sure she introduces herself. It's on the record. Okay, I'm going to ask if there are any disclosures now, but we can, of course, touch on them before any item. Gender revisions. Do I hear someone to move the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think it's probably down to you, Brianna, for seconding. Thank you. I did hear from Municipal Manager that there was one more item to add.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Mike. There, potentially after item 6, we could touch on, we have a second draft ordinance in the works that was responsive to the same conversation we had about GBOS's powers in the land and land use space. And so there's a draft ordinance regarding the HLB commission composition and potentially adding a second Girdwood seat. So if we could add that as item 7, that would be fantastic.
Okay, thank you. Could
Brianna, I'll move to add that item to the agenda.
Thank you. So that amendment is moved. We get a second, Brian?
Brian seconds.
Thank you. Any discussion on the amendment? If not, I will take it by assent unless I hear otherwise. Okay, now we have an amended agenda with item 7. Is there any discussion on that? Okay, I'll take it by assent unless I hear anything contradicting. Okay, so the agenda is approved. Thank you. Okay. Let's move straight into, actually, sorry, can we just do an introduction of members of the administration as well, please?
Certainly, and we have a lot of guest stars here today.
Yes,
because
I saw all the stuff.
Different items, yeah, where we have some substance. So I think we'll go maybe in order of people who are relevant to each item. So I'm Becky Wynn-Pearson, Municipal Manager. Tiffany, do you want to go? And then others who are here for item 1 regarding the industrial park?
Sure. Tiffany Briggs, Real Estate Director.
Also been here too.
Ryan, go ahead.
Ryan Yell, Land Management Officer for Heritage Land Bank.
Emma
Gibney, Land Management Officer for Heritage Land Bank.
Right for you. Okay, so on the DOT item, I will speak to that, and then short-term rentals. Bill, say hi.
I'm Bill Faulty. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer in this go-round municipal service, which means I have the internal service functions, HR, IT, purchasing, and finance. I'm going to talk about the short-term rental regulation.
So then on finance, on the funding for capital projects, Ross, do you want to introduce yourself and your team?
Yes, I'm Ross Risvold. I'm the Public Finance Manager, and I work for Philippe Rice, the CFO.
And you have with you online?
And I've invited Cynthia Weed. Are you there?
be here. Cynthia, you want to say hi?
Hi. I am here and will do a minimal amount of talking, only if spoken to.
Cynthia is the municipality's longtime bond counsel.
And Steve Cantor is a longtime municipal advisor for the municipality. I believe he is here as well.
Yes, well, so good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you for joining us.
All right, and then on the next item regarding policing, I guess the next two items are legal staffing. So Quincy and Zach, you want to introduce yourselves?
Hi, Zach Schwartz, Assistant Municipal Attorney.
And Quincy Arms, Managing Assistant Municipal Attorney.
I think that's everybody but Lance, who's here as general support. You have to say hi, Lance.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, Lance, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mr. Chairman. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge that I just saw Kelly O'Connect join the meeting, and I think we have another guest as well sitting at the table there.
Yes, I would acknowledge that the mayor history does.
Hi, just
Thank you.
happy to be here for a few minutes to fit in.
To see you. Okay, so we will jump straight into item number 1. I will let Tiffany or municipal manager take over here.
Yeah, and I will turn it to Tiffany. Take it away.
Thanks, Mike. I'm actually going to ask Ryan to give an update on this item. He's got all the good details for you.
Sure. Thank you, Tiffany. And would it be all right if I share my screen for folks?
Sure, let me get off and then you can do it. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Kyle. So thank you, everyone. I'll just give a brief update on the status of the Girdwood Industrial Park. The image that I have shared on the screen here is the concept that was featured in a HLB AC presentation about, what to do with the Girdwood Industrial Park and what potential subdivisions could look like. And this is the option that the Girdwood Board of Supervisors wrote a letter of support for. It was a 5-tracked option. So you'd have 4 tracks with one large remainder. The current draft that we have and we've been developing with our surveyor is actually for a 6-tracked option. So you'd have 1 large remainder tract and then 5 smaller tracts within the Girdwood Industrial Park. And the biggest change that you're going to see from what we're currently developing based upon this original concept is what was referred to as Tract D. The northern portion of it is mostly wetlands, and we have tracted that out into a separate tract and then shifted the property line for Tract D south a little bit. And that is what our current preliminary plat is intended to look like. The community presentation that we'll be giving to the Land Use Committee is scheduled for September 8th. And then we'll be doing a follow-up presentation to GBOS on the 15th. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Thank you, Ryan. Any questions from the board? Okay, so I have one question. What's the have you got feedback from the permittees who are using various parts of these tracts on this idea?
Yeah, we've been working
on the
with
latest. On the latest boundaries. I specifically meant. Sorry.
Sure. No, thank you, Mr. Chair. We've been working with the permittees and notifying them of our intent to move forward with the subdivision. There is one permittee that we've had some difficulty contacting, but we are still continuing to make contact with them to make sure that they are okay with the current property boundaries as proposed.
Thank you. Well, actually, it looks like Kelly has lost contact for a while and she's back in. I will give her the opportunity to ask any questions. Kelly, can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry, I was having login trouble, but I can hear you.
Yeah, thank you. Ryan just presented on the current plans for Industrial Park, and I just wanted to give you the opportunity if you have any questions for him.
No, I mean, I'm sorry, I missed the discussion. Are there any actual updates or is it just kind of continuing down the path we discussed before?
There are some slight changes to the boundaries that will be different to the things shown on screen. I think that's the main difference. Is that correct, Ryan?
That's correct.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say about it. I mean, I think the most important thing was that we could maintain the future expandability. So as long as that capacity is maintained and that the service area could get its lot, those were the kind of key priorities: future expansion and service area needs.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. I know there'll be more to discuss about this in the future, but I think we can probably move on to the next item now, unless there are any other questions from anyone. Last opportunity. Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to item number 2 then.
Okay, so on item number 2, I have an update in terms of the permitting process for the proposed helicopter hangar development at the airport. And just as I've laid this out in a series of emails, but for those who weren't part of those emails, just a quick update on the reminder on the framework. This location is outside of the building safety service area. So our assertion as a municipality is that the required permit is a land use permit. Under Title 21, the construction of an aviation hangar is an as of right use on the airport parcel. And so as of today, we have received a complete application from the operator of the helicopter business for a land use permit, and that is in the process of being reviewed by the appropriate municipal departments. And they will look at specifically things such as required setbacks under municipal code, required paint colors, and the appropriate setback from Glacier Creek. And we have been assured by the applicant that he will wait until the permit is granted and he will sign off on by him before commencing any construction on the site.
Thank you. Was that?
Yeah. Sorry. Mike?
Thank you. I do have a quick question. Was that received when you said as of today? Was it received today or was it received last week?
It was received on Friday. We reached out in response to the concerns that were raised last week regarding issuance, of the state building permit, and the concern that construction would proceed without a municipal permit in hand. So we did reach out directly to the gentleman who owns the helicopter business, and that permit application was initiated, I believe, on Friday.
Okay. And can you remind me if the permit is, because this is not a, if this is by right, then it won't necessarily go through a full public process, but
it will not go to a public hearing,
yeah.
Sorry, go on.
So is the information actually available to the public? The information
It's
in that permit
available
application?
after it is approved as drafted. So municipal code says submissions are not part of the public record until the permit is approved, and then all of the information is available and can be reviewed because it can change in the process. But you're right that there is no public hearing as part of this process, right, because of the fact that the municipal code, again, is not a conditional use. It's that the Title 21 requirements do not dictate a public hearing.
Right, but there will be no public access to the plans until after the permit is issued.
That's correct. And so that will be, and it should be relatively shortly, and then those can be reviewed and considered publicly as soon as I think we should I understand the review may be complete in the next day.
Okay.
And
I
Quincy,
will, sorry.
Sorry, Mike, go on. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, please go ahead.
I anticipate there may be a question of, is there some recourse for the public to appeal a permit that is granted? And Quincy, I don't want to catch you off guard, but could you maybe speak to what the potential appeal options are for a land use permit?
Ooh, I wish I could, Becky. I don't know the answers to that off the top of my head.
Okay, well, we can maybe follow up with that information. I don't know if that's requested, but I would just anticipate that some folks on this call may have the question of, is there an opportunity to appeal the grant of a permit? And we can put that information together.
Okay, I'll do it right now.
Yeah, I will offer the opportunity to other board members, or in fact anyone here, to ask questions on this topic or to follow up with discussion.
I have a question. Back in the Wayback Machine, back in the 80s, there was some attempts at developing kind of along the eastern border of the Anchorage Airport property adjoining kind of Wendy's Way and that Turnagain neighborhood in there. And there was I recall quite an outcry from neighbors about placing, it was hangars and airport taxi, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that the hangars got nixed out of things, and that additional runway ended up getting placed on that. I'm wondering what mechanism it was that allowed the Turnagain Community Council to successfully petition the airport and the municipality to put a halt on the proposed building over there.
I don't know the answer to that question in terms of what happened at that point. I would presume that the same recourse was available that is available now. Is that, again, we assert as a municipality, the state does not agree, but we assert that we have jurisdiction over the implementation of Title 21 and Title 23 on airport lands, so both zoning and building code. And then the airport has jurisdiction over its own master planning. So I don't know where that landed. We're trying to do some digging and trying to figure out what exactly it was, but I think they would have been in the same paradigm. And I'm not sure. I know in the past we've again looked at the same frameworks for other proposals on the Ted Stevens Airport, and it all comes down to again zoning code, building code, and then recourse to the airport or whatever their decisions are. State.
Again, I'm going to, if there are any other questions either from the board or the public, I know there are a couple of, is that Steve? Yes, Steve, go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Mike, and thank you, everyone. This is Steve Halverson. I'm with the Alaskans for Responsible Airport Development. We've recently formed this group down here in Girdwood. My question is, where does the Girdwood Comprehensive Plan, which pretty clearly speaks about this type of border issue, where does this fit in? Because it seems to us that it's being ignored. And this was an assembly, adopted and approved plan. And those of us down here, we make our plans based on municipal plans. And so we have, put in a lot into our homes down here. We're trying to decide, we're near the airport. We recognize that. We have been good neighbors to the airport, and now there's a new plan. I did submit a package, and on page 4, it shows a map of the entire airport. And you can see the tiny little parcel H, and then the only spot where there's homes I highlighted. But anyway, my question is, quite obviously, this doesn't make common sense, but where does the Girdwood Comprehensive Plan fit in here? When do we get to look at the 4 items that are in that plan for any development on the boundary? And as far as right of use, if the state's own Girdwood Airport Plan says helicopter operations should be to the northeast, does that still make it a right of use? Because they're placing this as far away from their own plan as possible. So those are my questions. Thank you again, Mike, for letting me speak.
Thanks, Steve. Quincy, again, to kick a question to you without warning, do you want to can you talk a little bit about the legal interplay between plans and implementation and Title 21?
Yikes. I wish I could. I heard the questions and I wrote them all down. Is it okay if I punt again and get back to y'all?
Sure. I mean, I think that my rough interpretation of that is that I think we, like the challenges that we as from a permitting authority are charged with with enforcing what is actually in Title 21 and Title 23, which is informed by the comp plan. But Steve, sorry, your hand is up. Did you want to comment further?
No, I was more listening to the answer. And I really, really appreciate the mayor being present. Thank you. Thank you for that. We're happy that you're here. I'm wondering, Mayor, if there's any way you can delay this decision and give us a chance to work with the state on some options to have our group, our Alaskans for Responsible Airport Development, because we are trying to do this responsibly. So I guess it's a question for the mayor. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. And no, I don't have an answer to that. I would need to talk with Becky and Quincy and understand exactly the steps and what actions we could take, unless you've got an answer, Becky, as far as.
I think that the challenges that is the scope of our jurisdiction as a municipality. I think that's a challenge I would speak to in terms of the airport master plan issue as well. Title 21 speaks specifically to the uses that are permissible in the Girdwood Airport District. And on the list of as of right uses, again, is an aircraft storage hangar, which is the complete, like this development is only an aircraft storage hangar. And so that is, again, under the code that we have the ability to enforce under 210904OF2B. Our jurisdiction doesn't extend to where within the district that hangar is cited. So that is an issue to take up with the airport. And then I think we are charged with enforcing our process in terms of running a permit through, but there is, unfortunately, the land use permit process does not have a public participation element to it because this is an as of right use under Title 21. Quincy, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just gonna add, I did a while back try to drill down to how this development would conflict with the new Girdwood plan, and me and current planning manager were not able to find anything in conflict. So I guess, Mr. Halverson, if you have anything to add to your question about when does the Girdwood comprehensive or the new Girdwood update to the plan come into play. I guess I'm just confused about that because it didn't really specifically mention anything changing on airport property. So.
Yes, thanks for that question, and I appreciate that you looked into it before. There's a section called that deals with the Girdwood Airport, and what it says is development it is a little fuzzy, I'm going to say, but it directly applies. It says any development will recognize the community, sense of place, and natural environment. So we would like the ability to get together. And also it says the implementers are threefold. It's GBOS, municipal planning, and AKDOT and PF. We would like to get, and maybe this is where our mayor can delay this or maybe get a meeting, because we would like the chance to present or to have people defend why this particular development of Parcel H recognizes the community, sense of place, and natural environment. And then in the Girdwood Comprehensive Plan, it talks about development will be appropriate. And we would like to hear their case for why this particular parcel of land is appropriate. And we would like the chance to make our presentation as well. And we do understand how the Title 21, I mean, I don't fully understand it, but I know the letter of the law. I'd ask you to just consider the public interest as well. There's tremendous public interest in this up and down the state level. And I appreciate you taking my comments on this and asking these questions, but that's where we feel like it fits in on those 4 categories.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. If there are any other questions or comments on this, is that Deborah? Yeah, Deborah, if we could be fairly brief on this, we need to move on, but I'm happy to take your comments.
Thanks, Mike. I just wanted to say that who just had said that it was a hangar and the parcel. It's not just a hangar. It's a full operational heli ski business that boasts for having the longest season from October through April. It's a big difference than just a hangar being on that parcel. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
If I might Mike, could I just clarify
Please.
quickly? The physical change to the parcel, which is what we look at for the land use permit, is just a hangar building, because we understand that the structure, the operation has been operating at the airport without a hangar thus far. And so again, what we permit is just the actual physical change to the parcel, and the physical change that is proposed is a 60-foot by 80-foot hangar. Full stop. That's it. So I acknowledge that doesn't potentially speak to what they will operate in the hangar, but in terms of what our jurisdiction is, in terms of what are we actually permitting on site? It's a hangar building.
Okay, thank you. I'm not saying, I know this obviously conversation is going to continue, but I'm not seeing any other questions on this now. So I think for the interest of time, we should move on to item 3, I believe, which I believe is Bill.
Certainly follow up. So thank you for that, Mike. Okay, and then I will turn it to Bill to talk about short-term rentals.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer whatever questions the Board of Supervisors have for me. I will say that I can review the bidding a little bit to let you know where we are, and we're in the midst of we're in the middle of the stream rather than the end of the stream. So you will recall, because I know the Girdwood has taken a special interest in short-term rentals, that in the waning days of the Bronson administration, the Assembly passed an ordinance that pretty heavily regulated and required licensure. All short-term rentals, and included you'd have a 24-hour, 24/7 contact individual, to various insurance requirements, that you could have your license pulled for various kinds of violations. That ordinance was vetoed by the then mayor and not overridden by the Assembly. As one of her parting ordinances, Meg Zalatel, Assemblymember Vice Chair Zalatel, had proposed an ordinance in the fall of last year that said, well, if not licensure, maybe we'll require some tax reporting. So that as the platforms, Airbnb, the CASA, VRBO, are remitting their quarterly bed taxes, we will now newly require them to also tell us the number of units that the taxes were being submitted for, and the kind of unit that the taxes were collected from, meaning a room in a house, a half of a duplex, part of a triplex, or something else. I know it's scintillating. I won't take it personally. We have had, I will say, imperfect compliance with that ordinance, and overt objections from some of the platforms that it is an inappropriate use of our taxing power, and also an objection that some of the information that is required by our ordinance on the book is actually not in their possession, meaning that some of the platforms have said, I have no idea whether this thing that is being rented out on my platform is a room in a duplex or a triplex or a single family home. We're still assessing our options, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think it would not be oh my goodness, I'm losing them left and right. I think it would not be out of the possibility that in short order, the administration with some Assembly members would introduce a new kind of ordinance, which would look less like the original licensing and less like the tax reporting and more as a registration requirement. So if what I believe to be the emerging consensus is that first things first, we want to get a handle on what the short-term rental presence in our community is, that we could have something like a free registration requirement that would allow us to collect the kind of information that was of interest, both for just short-term rental impacts, but also for the kind of housing units that were being offered. Like I say, that is still actively being worked behind the curtain. There may be some other curly cues. I could certainly take some questions about all of that. But ahead of that, the best information, we got some voluntary information that was supplied to us from Airbnb. I know that I forwarded that along to Mike Edgington. It wasn't wholly illuminating. It did have something like 230 listings in the bright red region that was everywhere south of McCune Creek and all the way down to basically Whittier, which I assume 99% are probably in Girdwood. The folks that we have been talking to in Airbnb have been quick to point out that they like to distinguish between raw numbers of listings and the frequency with which those listings appear, meaning that there's a difference in kind between someone who lists their home for one busy weekend slush cup versus someone who is renting their unit out for the entirety of the year. We don't have that level of visibility right now. It is the kind of thing that we could potentially or directly collect from individual vendors. So that, I think, is a current state of play. And I'm happy to take questions.
First of all, I'll ask if any other board members have questions, and then I will add maybe a couple to the end of my own. Any questions from Brianna, Brian, or Kelly? If not, I'll dive in with a couple then. Thank you very much, Bill. Couple of quick questions. Do you think it's likely, I know you are not introducing this, this is being introduced by Assembly members, if there is an ordinance coming in the near future. Is it likely it will provide any enforcement mechanisms at all, or will it just be a registration if you wish?
So I should clarify that we, the administration, are working on an ordinance jointly with, and I don't think they would mind my outing them, with Zach Johnson, Daniel Boland, and Aaron Baldwin-Day.
Yep.
I think that we're somewhat interested in baby stepping this. So to get the information, I think we are more interested in just a pure registration requirement rather than putting a lot of new compliance obligations on folks.
In terms of the process, going from a very simple registration to something with increasing compliance is generally not very successful in other jurisdictions. Starting with something which has at least a compliance requirement and then moving from there has been more successful. So I just wondered if there are any thoughts on that. I mean, is there really intention of going further, or is this more of a question of when it becomes a major problem in perhaps Anchorage Bold, then there may be action, because we already know it's a very significant problem in Girdwood.
My reaction to that would be twofold. First, I think we're open to ideas. So I know that you had sent a document earlier, and I can fish that out. But if there's later it's greatest thinking, I know you did some kind of course from Utah or something. I'm not sure I got the readout.
That's now available. Yeah.
We would certainly benefit from yours and the rest of the Girdwood Board of Supervisors and Girdwood community's best thinking on this. I will confess, I had not thought that there was necessarily a lot of path dependence, that you could start and go crawl, walk, run. If it is the case that other communities, once they start crawling, have difficulty standing up, then that would be interesting to learn. But I'll also say that I don't know that there is a consensus about what the next step could or should be. So it felt like this was the one thing that everyone sort of said, well, we need this at a minimum. And this would be enabling for whatever comes next.
And again, speaking from a perspective of having watched the activity in Girdwood, I think if you're in a community and you're paying attention to a community where there's maybe 1.5% of properties involved in the short-term rental market, then it's not clear how big a problem it's going to become. It's not clear if it's a problem, and it's not clear what the next steps are. If you're in a community where 20-odd% of the housing is involved in the short-term market, which Girdwood is, you have a very, very different perspective, and we have lived experience of the problems. So I think there may be a difference in sense of urgency and need and steps and ultimate outcome in our community versus the broader Anchorage community. And of course, we know that's a fundamental problem with the style of government we have. Anyway, I look forward to more engagement in the near future. Do you think there is likely to be a draft ordinance in the very near future, or is this going to be a fall, winter? I'm just wondering what the sense is there for timescale.
I hope so. I thought that we might even have one by now. Now seeing a pretty close to final or pretty close to working draft. that I don't yet know has gone to assembly members yet. So just
Okay.
reeling more inside baseball. There was a draft 1, we had an internal meeting, and then it's taken a little while to get to draft 2. But draft 2 now exists, at least on our side, and I think we're throwing it across the transom imminently if we haven't already done that.
Okay, at which point would it be appropriate
I'm
for
hopeful.
GBOS to see it and comment?
Well, that's a great question. I think that the plan had been to workshop it a little further with the assembly members. And I can take their temperature on whether I'm sure once it gets introduced, we have the usual process of a public hearing, but for certain, this feels like it's going to be at least one work session.
Right, okay. Thank you. Any other questions from the board or other members or other community members? If not, then thank you, Brian. Please go ahead.
I'm curious about the work session when it's going on, if there would be a way for someone designated from Girdwood to assist on the work session, so that we can get a perspective in before it comes time for public comment on it, if you will. It's difficult to comment at the assembly chambers on what's going on, and maybe if we can help craft, put our perspective in it in a work session, we might have some more traction going forward with the public comment further on.
Well, I generally agree that it is hard to do significant business in 3-minute public hearing chunks. So I think to the extent that, one of you gets 5. So I think to whatever extent we can influence that, we'll certainly lean on that time before we're crashing into the SAC library chambers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? If not, let's move on to item number 4. Thank you very much, Bill.
Hi, so item number 4 is funding for Girdwood capital projects. And this item stemmed from a conversation that we have been having following the failure of the bond, the Girdwood specific bond, to pass the area-wide confirmation vote on the last election this spring. We're brainstorming other potential ways to generate substantial sums of capital for investment in Girdwood projects. We talked a bit about the municipality's history with interfund loans, and then Ross did some good brainstorming for us to think about other potential structures that could generate capital for investment without necessitating this dual vote that's required for a bond proposition. And so we had an idea to discuss today, which is kind of it's potentially a 2-piece or 1-piece idea. And the idea hinges around a lease-back transaction involving a central government facility. Could use essential government facilities located within Girdwood, and then that would be paid back over time. And the initial thought was there would be a way if the Girdwood Valley Service Area we wanted to vote on a special levy to pay down that lease back, that would be something that would only go to the voters within the service area, and would allow for effectively, again, the generation of a sum of capital up front and then a pay down over time just from the voters within the service area. I know Mike asked me the question, we had a preview meeting last week about this, of whether or not some of the funds collected from the existing mill levy could be utilized to pay down the lease-back transaction. And I think they probably can, but that's part of the reason I asked Ross to be here, because he is the real subject matter expert. So I'll let Ross speak a little further to this idea, and then we're available to answer any questions about the concept and explore whether it's something we might want to continue to try to push forward.
Sure. Thank you, Rebecca. That's very good introduction. Thank you. What the financing alternative that I've discussed with our bond counsel, Cynthia Weed, and our municipal advisor, Steve Cantor, is what Rebecca referred to as leaseback transaction. And what this basically is that the municipality would sell certificates of participation to investors, also known as COPs. The COPs are collateralized with essential governmental purpose municipal property. Things like a fire station, a police station, housing of transit equipment, things like that. Something that's essential to the operation of the government. Now, the value of the collateral is expected to be 120% of par amount of the COP, so you've got a loan to value ratio of approximately 80%. So the MOA would lease the collateral to a trustee for a nominal amount, and then the MOA would then lease back the facilities from the trustee. So hence the name lease back. And the lease payments to the trustee would be used to pay for debt service on the COPs. There are some caveats that include the municipality must continue to occupy the buildings. There's limited disposition of the leased properties while the transaction is outstanding. There's monthly or semi-annual remittance activity to the trustee, and this back office activity would be managed by the Public Finance Division. We've done this leaseback transactions in 1996, 2006, and 2017 for the purposes of reducing the unfunded liability in some of our investment funds. For example, in 2017, I believe it was for the police and fire retirement system. So we've done these types of transactions before. We've identified a couple of what we call essential governmental purpose buildings in Girdwood. For example, were we to use an elementary school in Girdwood and the Anchorage Fire and Rescue Building in Girdwood, the assessed or appraised value is approximately $5.3 million. Using those two buildings as what I call collateral for the COPs, we could borrow approximately $4.3 million, which would pay for capital projects and cost of issuance for the transaction. And so not knowing exactly the variety of capital projects that you have in mind, that's one way we could finance them. And I might ask Steve or Cynthia if I had that correct, or if there's anything that either of you would like to add with an overview of leaseback transactions. Steve or Cynthia?
Ross, this is Steve. You gave a very cogent explanation of what we can do, and it's certainly something the municipality has done in the past, as you alluded to several other times. So if that's the will of the people, we would go ahead and proceed with that transaction.
Cynthia, any comment?
No, except to say that this is an alternative method that has been used by the municipality to finance capital improvements or other expenditures without actually issuing bonds. It's a legal way to achieve financing that is subject to appropriation, but effectively can provide funds to deal with other financial obligations of the municipality. And lenders rely upon it and trust it. And so it is a reasonable method of obtaining money for capital expenditures or otherwise for the municipality. And no one expects that the asset that's being leased out or leased back is actually going to be lost to the use of the municipality, because obviously the municipality promises to make the payments on the lease, subject to appropriation for the life of the life of that lease and lease back. So it is a method of financing that appears a little odd, but effectively deals with limitations that we have under our municipal charter.
Thank you both for that enhanced summary. We're happy to answer any questions that any staff or members of the board have. Happy to do that.
Thank you. So I'll ask first of all if there are any board members who have questions. One very quick question. What are the negatives or the downsides of this approach versus, for example, a bond? I can see the advantages, but are the rates higher? Are there other problems or complications with terms? Or
Steve or Cynthia, you want to comment on?
Sure, I'll start, Ross. You were correct that the rates would be higher under this structure than they would be if we had a general obligation bond that was approved by the voters. Having said that, right now, won't be that much difference. There is additional cost, but that's one of it. And the second thing is that it's a little bit more complicated to explain to investors. But other than that, that's really the only downside.
I would say there's probably a practical downside to the fact that there's a limitation because it's tied to the value of central government buildings that we'd be using for the lease back, whereas there's no such kind of ceiling other than the political will, which has been the challenge to the amount that could be borrowed in a general obligation bond. Is that right, Ross?
Effectively,
Yeah.
thank you.
And the other limitation is that we can only do this once with these properties. It's so it does any future transactions, we would have to come up with another way of doing things and not be able to use these assets.
So we get back, right, Steve?
Yes, ma'am,
Yes,
unless we pay it off and do it again, so.
Yeah. So it would only be revolving in the sense of it would have to be completely finished, and then you could revolve, but it wouldn't be able to be revolving the way the bonds are. Yeah.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Ross or Steve, can you speak to how long would we generally take to pay back such a lease back transaction?
Well, we could do it in a variety of terms.
Depending on how much money we have available. Yeah.
Sure, and depending on the appetite for an assessment.
Okay.
Sure, we can, depending on what you're going to use the money for and when you need it, and how much, then we can go into the terms like that.
Yeah, that was going to be my question as to if we could pay down principal faster, because a lot of times we just need funding up front to get the project going and catch the market where it's at. And then if we're able to, with a 10-year term, can we pay it down in 5? Things along those lines.
Now, thank you for that. That's a good question. As a matter of fact, in certain transactions, when you're attracting investors, they'll require a no prepayment term of some amount of years, or they'll say require a prepayment penalty of say 102, 103, 105, something like that.
Yeah.
So there is that to consider. The other alternative is rather than spending all your cash, it might be better to keep some of your cash in hand for other projects or for shoring up your fund balance.
Great. Yep, those are things we just want to consider as we deal with it.
Steve, did I have that correct?
Yes, Ross, that's correct.
Thank you. I just want to, sorry.
Mr. Chair. Anything else, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, I just want to, obviously the problem we're trying to solve here is that when a service area, in this case Girdwood, is the only part of the municipality that's paying for something, the whole of the municipality, all voters in the municipality have to vote on it as well to approve use of full faith and credit. And I think there has definitely been some confusion in the part of voters in the way, even with the improved wording we had last year, with the way that that's expressed. And I did hear a suggestion a little while ago about perhaps ways that can be changed, either potentially more than, different wording for people who are paying for it versus areas which are not, or indeed just moving the clarification on who is paying for it to the very, very beginning. I read deeply into these kinds of documents, and I normally don't get to paragraph 4 of a bond proposition. So I don't know if that would be a very simple way of perhaps looking at this, and I don't think it would be as good as the approach we just suggested. But I'm just wondering if, since we have both Cynthia and Steve on here, if you could perhaps comment on those potential suggestions of can bonds be raised so that it's much, much clearer to voters who is paying for them?
In theory, it's possible that we've seen a number of different ways of doing so. But if we're looking for more certainty, obviously the electoral process provides a great deal of uncertainty as to how people are going to interpret and whatever other factors are convincing people to vote on other referendums that are there at that time. So we can try and do better. I think we can always be more clear, but there's no guarantee of success.
Understood. Thank you.
And I might add that it has been a practice of the municipality for a long, long time to make it clear when there is an intention to provide for the payment of a bond that's voter approved to be made only from certain service areas. So but for better or for worse, in order to have the debt be a general obligation, it has to be approved both by that service area as well as by the municipality as a whole. And so I actually think the ballot is relatively clear, but I do think that there are other political implications that may pass it through. In other words, we've dealt with this over some extended period of time, that we have this concept of bonds that are only going to be paid from the taxes in a particular service area. That does not, by the way, always assure that the ballot proposition is going to be approved. But we've developed a practice and a form for those ballot propositions that we certainly can work on with people internally, but it's been a process that has evolved so that we've tried to be uniform when we have these ballot propositions that are service area primarily, but then also have to be approved by the municipality as a whole.
Understood. Thank you. I mean, I think the wording is definitely improved over the last decade or so that I've been paying close attention. However, I know from practical experience, almost nobody voting in the Anchorage Bowl or the outside of the Girdwood service area was really aware of they were not paying for the last set of bonds. So the message is just simply not getting through. And it could be that it's the very end of the bond where typically people do not read. Anyway, I think we've covered this item. I think we should discuss it internally with GBUS, but I think there may be interest in following the lease model. Anyway, let's move on. We have 2.5 more items left and not very much time. So if we can move on to item number 5,
Mike, I have just one quick question.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I didn't see your hand up.
Yeah. Regarding the leaseback transactions and when collateral is being put up, let's say the elementary school is put up as collateral, does can the school be used in multiple projects at the same time, or does it have to be taken to the full value of collateral in one transaction?
If you're referring to other lease transactions, it can only be in one lease transaction at a time.
Regardless of whether it's a 1 million lease or a 4 million lease. Thank you.
But we could divide up, correct, Ross? Like
Pardon me?
your initial figure, the 4.289 figure, was based on the idea of using the fire and rescue building and school together, right? So there would be an opportunity, like we could use one or the other if the desire was to create a smaller amount of capital. Correct?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure. I just picked the two biggest valued properties, added them together for the purposes of discussion.
And one more thing before we go. So the process is that if we wanted to go this route, it'd become a voter initiative that would probably be on an April ballot and we'd vote for it.
Want to adopt a special levy that would pay this down, then yes, that would go on the ballot. But Ross, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no voter action required on the leaseback itself. There would be assembly action, but not voter action if we just did the leaseback.
That sound right, Cynthia?
I need to take myself off mute. Oh, yes, I'm off mute. Yes, that is correct. That is absolutely correct.
Okay. That gives us something to think about when we work with our annual budgets, how we can pay it down.
So it would be on a ballot. So Cynthia, it would be on for example, April ballot, but that ballot would only be presented to the Girdwood voters, and it would be presented. It would present just a self-assessment or levy.
It's like a levy lid lift. It's like a levy lid lift, where basically they're agreeing to pay extra taxes over and above the automatic increase in taxes that is imposed otherwise. So, but it's only voting for approval of a tax, but it's not including a financial obligation that, for better or for worse, in order to be general obligation bonds, does as a secondary pledge, bring in the promise of the voters, all the rest of the service areas. So the bond is the highest credit because you get the overall Anchorage credit, even though voters of a service area approve it. But you then get full general faith and credit bonds. But if you're just going to have a levy lid lift for a particular territory, a service area, then you just have that levy lid lift vote.
Okay, thank you.
I know we have 3 minutes left. So quickly on Whittier Policing Contract in addition of enforcement of fire complaints. Zach, do you want to speak quickly to this?
Sure, I just did a little bit of research on 2 items regarding the policing contract. The first was the letter from Whittier Police asking for $40,000 additional dollars when the contract is up for renewal at the end of this year. Looking into that, it looks like that would require assembly approval. The contract amendment doesn't fit into the exceptions for going through with not going through assembly approval. So
That would be an amendment, right? Exactly. Like the current extension does not contemplate a change in pricing, correct?
exactly, yeah.
That would be a discretionary change that we would agree to if we felt like we wanted to pay them more money.
Exactly, yes. And the renewal already contemplates a price increase from the original contract. And then as far as enforcement of what I thought was just Title 8, but it looks like on the agenda, fire complaints, either way, that would also likely require an amendment because the contract is clear that the Whittier Police can enforce Alaska state law and may enforce parking violations. And it's not totally clear if we would also need to amend code to give the Whittier Police authority to enforce Title 8 violations also. We would have to do a little more research on that.
We did a little canvassing in the sense because the original contract is signed by Bill and I. So we were trying to remind ourselves of why at the time we thought we weren't able to have Whittier. And I don't know if we talked about this a little, Kyle. I don't know if you recall why. We couldn't remember if it was that the Whittier Police Department itself did not want to enforce municipal code because we couldn't find anything in the code that was specifically required. Said that they could not, but we were kind of trying to like refresh our recollection of how we got to this place and who was, we remember there being some block to Title 8 being enforced by Whittier PD, but we couldn't recall what it was.
Well, I think it's the way their system was set up that they work with the Alaska State Prosecutor's Office and they work with all the codes there.
To do it.
So,
are they willing to now?
We have not directly asked them about it. You know, it would probably require them a new ticketing procedures and then establishing a
That
relationship.
seems like the operable question. If we think their objection originated from them, it seems like practically speaking, we have to figure out if they could even do it.
Yes.
And then we could put the pieces in place to make it happen. I assume they'd probably charge us more money.
Yeah, most likely. And then they probably it might be confusing for them because they'll be working in the Whittier side off the Alaska Prosecutor's Office and then on the Girdwood side off the municipal prosecutors. So it ends up being twice the workload for them. Or it could be, so that'd be something to ask.
It seems like it's worth the practical question, and then we can assess that against what gains we would get, which I understand the impetus to want to have new municipal code changes, like the, encampment ordinances enforceable in Girdwood by the police, practically speaking, but you have to weigh it against however much they decide, whether they say, nope, that's it, we're out.
Yeah, yeah, no, there's a little bit of that too.
Okay, anything else you guys need on that one right now?
No, we can continue to work with Zach as we get through this.
Okay. And then Quincy, we're gonna move to 6 and 7. You want to describe quickly the 2 draft ordinances we have, and then potentially the next step is for us to circulate those and we can discuss them further once they've been circulated. But I think I'd turn it to you to talk about the Title 21 proposed change and the 8 proposed change.
Sure. So it is already drafted. This was in response to a request for a legal opinion about whether Girdwood Board of Supervisors already had the ability to initiate Title 21 text amendments. And I unfortunately opined, no, I don't think that you do, but I do think that it would be an easy code change to mirror basically the same exact code language that already exists for the Chugiak Eagle River Advisory Board. So it would put you in the same position as them as a quote review or decision-making body. So I already have that drafted. I'd be happy to circulate it.
I think that's what I would, absent objection from the chair from staff, I think that's what I'd suggest, circulating it. And then if there are feedback, if there are questions or changes, we could incorporate those. And otherwise, if everyone feels comfortable with it, we could move forward with it, putting that into the queue for assembly consideration.
Thank you. I'd
Yep.
appreciate that.
Great. Okay, and then the other one is another pretty simple change that Zach drafted to add one designated seat to the Heritage Land Bank Advisory Commission, specifically from the Girdwood community.
So it would increase the number of Girdwood seats to 2 from the 1 that it is right now. And that's what we discussed it as, I know, an initial step towards some of the broader desire to have more Girdwood voice in the HLB process. Do you want to circulate that one too? Because it's really simple. It's just a numeric change, but you can circulate that
I'd
for.
be happy to.
Perfect.
Does that all? So just a quick question, does that add 1 seat to the advisory commission, or does that just add an additional designation to the existing seats?
It adds an overall seat.
Okay, thank you.
Right now, the code says at least 1 member shall reside in Girdwood, and it would say instead at least 2 members shall reside.
But
okay,
it keeps the total at 7.
I'm wrong.
Right,
yeah,
but keeping the
doesn't
total,
change
yes.
the
Okay.
total.
Thank you. So 2/7, not 2/8. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
And with that, I think we're done. We're only 3 minutes over unless there are further questions.
Yeah. I was gonna ask the same. Are there any questions on the last couple of items? Either the police or the code changes? The last 3 items, I guess. Brianna, you have a question.
Thank you, Mike. It's not a question. I just wanted to express my thanks and appreciation for item number 5 about the policing. And if you could do all the things you said you were going to do to look into it further, that'd be wonderful as we look into renewing the contract with Whittier. And you understand it way more than I do about what is enforceable and not, and that Whittier cannot do code enforcement in the 2 examples you just named, Ms. Pearson. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd also like to say thank you for, we've got through a lot of material today. I know it was rushed, but thank you very much. It's great to see the progress on these things, and we obviously have a number of items to follow up with. At that, I think I would call for an adjournment.
Move to adjourn, Brianna.
Thank you. Well, right. I'm not going to see any objections. Thank you very much indeed.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.